All right, get this. We are going deep today, diving into the world of pirates.
Pirates, Archmady, Shiver Me Timbers.
Haha, not quite those kinds of pirates, but yeah, in a way,
Okay, I'm intrigued.
we're talking digital pirates. And get this, we're covering the biggest IPTV bust the world has ever seen.
Oh, wow, I've heard about this. It's huge.
It is. We're talking a network of something like 22 million users.
22 million. That's like the population of some countries?
Exactly. It's more than the population of a lot of countries. Actually, crazy, right?
That's insane. So basically a ton of people were getting their TV illegally.
Illegally streamed, yeah. And this bust, they called it Operation Taken Down.
Etchy.
Right. It really highlights just how massive this whole world of IPTV piracy has become.
Yeah, and for our listeners who maybe aren't super familiar with all this, can we break down exactly what IPTV is?
Sure. So IPTV stands for Internet Protocol Television. So it's basically a way to stream TV channels over the internet.
Okay, so instead of cable or satellite.
Right. And it's gotten super popular
Yeah.
because it's usually way more flexible, and you often get a wider selection of channels.
Makes sense. It's like on-demand TV, but for, like, everything.
Yeah, exactly. And all those pluses are also what makes it easy to pirate.
Got it. So more options, more ways to bend the rules.
Exactly. Now, to Operation Taken Down, authorities all over Europe went after this thing, like a coordinated takedown.
Wow, sounds intense.
Oh, it was. They arrested 11 key players, took down over 100 servers, seized more than 100 websites, the whole 9 yards.
A full-on digital raid?
Exactly. And get this, authorities claim that this network was pulling in about 250 million.
Every month.
Every
Single month.
But hold on, didn't they only manage to actually seize like 1.7 million?
That's where things get interesting. That discrepancy has a lot of people wondering about those initial revenue claims.
Yeah, I mean, did they just miss a ton of money somehow?
That's the million-dollar question, right?
So
Or were those numbers inflated from the get-go? Who knows?
Definitely raises some eyebrows, though. Oh, for sure. But even if we're skeptical about those exact figures, it's undeniable that these illegal IPTV services are raking it in.
Yeah, no doubt about it.
But on the flip side of this, we got to talk about the companies that are actually losing money because of all this. The legitimate broadcasters.
Right, they're the ones taking a hit.
A big hit. And they claim that they're losing about $10 billion every year to piracy.
10 billion? Wow, that's a massive chunk of change.
It really is. I mean, just think about that number for a second. That's how much money is at stake in this whole fight against digital piracy.
It's mind-blowing.
Totally.
Yeah.
Now, you might be wondering, how do these illegal IPTV services actually make their money? You might think, oh, it's just about offering cheaper subscriptions, right?
Yeah, that's what I think.
Well, it's actually a bit more nuanced than that.
Really?
Yeah, so while some of them do offer these, like, premium tiers, with better quality streams for a small fee,
Okay.
a lot of them, they rely heavily on something else.
Ads, like pop-ups and stuff.
Exactly. We're talking about those super annoying pop-ups that you'll get on shady websites. And a lot of times those ads, they're for pretty questionable products or services, things you wouldn't want to click on.
Yeah, I hate those.
So, it's not always as simple as getting your favorite shows for cheap. You could actually be exposing yourself to some pretty risky stuff online just by using these illegal services.
Right. Makes you think twice.
It really does. And this is where it gets tricky, because then you got to ask yourself, are these giant crackdowns on piracy, are they really about protecting people, or are they just about protecting those big companies and their profits?
That's a good question. Like, are we putting all this effort into protecting intellectual property when maybe we could be using those resources to fight other things like, actual crime?
Yeah. And is the punishment really fitting the crime here?
Exactly.
And on top of all that, what's interesting is that some people argue there might actually be some benefits to piracy.
Benefits to piracy. How so?
Well, think about the music industry, for example.
Yeah.
A lot of musicians, especially newer artists who are just starting out, they actually see piracy as a form of free promotion.
Really?
Yeah, because especially for independent artists, making an album, it often costs them money. They don't actually make much profit from album sales.
Interesting. So the real money's in touring and merch.
Exactly. Touring, merchandise, that's where the money is. So if someone pirates your album, listens to it, and loves it,
They're more likely to come to a show.
exactly, they're more likely to buy a ticket to a show, buy a T-shirt, support you in those ways that actually bring in money.
So it's like accidental marketing in a way.
Right. Pretty interesting how that works. Now, the big question is, what about the future?
Yeah, what's next?
Can we even stop piracy in the long run?
It feels like a cat and mouse game, you know?
It totally does. And honestly, as long as there's digital content and ways to share it easily online, piracy is probably going to stick around in some form.
Probably, but maybe there are things we can do to make legal options better, more appealing.
Like what?
Well, for one, I think making streaming subscriptions cheaper would be huge if those services weren't so expensive.
More people would be willing to pay.
Exactly. It
Yeah,
just makes sense, right? Why risk it with illegal downloads or streams when you can get everything you want legally for a reasonable price?
for sure. And I think the industry also needs to adapt, be more innovative,
Yeah, instead of just trying to shut down pirate sites,
Yeah, find new ways to give people content.
maybe even try to integrate some aspects of what makes those illegal sites appealing, like flexibility and choice.
Interesting. So it's about offering something better and more convenient rather than just relying on like law enforcement to crack down on things.
Right, because ultimately it should be about creating a win-win situation for both the people creating the content and the people consuming it.
A win-win. I like that. So it seems like this whole piracy thing, it's way more complicated than it seems at first glance.
It really is. It's not just black and white, good guys versus bad guys.
Definitely not. It's this super complex issue. And it forces us to really think about intellectual property, how consumers behave, what the future of entertainment looks like.
Big questions.
Huge questions. So here's a thought to leave you with. What if legal streaming services and piracy could actually exist together?
Mhm.
What if there was some kind of hybrid model where certain content was free, but you had to pay for the premium stuff?
Kind of like a freemium model.
Exactly. Is that the future? Could it work? It's something to think about, definitely worth exploring further.
I'll be pondering that one.
Me too.
Hmm.
And with that, we'll wrap up this deep dive into the world of digital pirates. But to keep the conversation going, there's a lot more to uncover here.